In a dusty, forgotten corner of a sprawling city, where the sun seemed to hesitate before touching the cracked pavement, lived a boy named Eli. Barely 16, his hands were calloused from hauling scrap metal to feed his younger siblings, his mother too frail to work. The world had never been kind to Eli. It offered him no promises, only the weight of survival. Yet, in the quiet of night, when the city's clamor faded, he'd sit on a rusted fire escape, strumming an old guitar he'd found in a dumpster. Its strings were frayed, its body chipped, but to Eli, it was a lifeline. He'd hum tunes he'd heard on a neighbor's radio, and one song, Hotel California, became his obsession. Its haunting melody spoke to him, like a story of a place he'd never seen but felt in his bones. He'd sing softly, his voice raw but pure, weaving dreams of escape from the poverty that chained him. One evening, a passerby, a street vendor with a cracked smartphone, heard Eli's voice drift through the alley. Moved by the boy's soulful rendition, the vendor recorded it, the notes echoing against the graffiti-stained walls. Without Eli's knowledge, the video was uploaded to the internet, titled, "Poor Boy Sings Hotel California." By morning, it had spread like wildfire, shared across platforms, from X to every corner of the digital world. People were stunned. Here was a kid, clothed in rags, singing with a depth that rivaled the greatest artists. Comments poured in. Who is this boy? His voice is magic. The world didn't know Eli's name yet, but they felt his heart. Each note carried his pain, his hope, his unspoken story. The video's views climbed into the millions, and soon, music producers, journalists, and dreamers were searching for the boy behind the voice. Eli, oblivious, continued his daily grind, unaware that his life was about to change forever. His song had reached ears that could lift him from the shadows, but the journey ahead would test his spirit in ways he couldn't imagine. The city woke to a frenzy, its digital pulse racing with Eli's video. On X, users shared clips, dissecting every note, marveling at how a boy with nothing could create something so profound. Hotel California, a song about being trapped in a gilded cage, resonated differently through Eli's voice. It was raw, real, a cry from someone who knew what it meant to be caught in life's unyielding grip. Back in the alley, Eli's routine hadn't changed. He hauled scrap, dodged debt collectors, and checked on his mother, whose cough grew worse daily. The guitar, his only solace, stayed hidden under a tarp, safe from thieves. But whispers began to spread in his neighborhood. A local shopkeeper, who'd seen the video, recognized Eli's face and called out to him, "Boy, you're famous." Eli laughed it off, thinking it a joke. Fame was for others, not for someone like him. Yet, the shopkeeper showed him the video on a cracked phone screen, and Eli froze. His voice, his song, was out there, seen by millions. He felt exposed, vulnerable, but also something new, pride. Strangers online were calling him a prodigy, a voice of a generation. Some offered donations, others demanded he perform live. A music producer from Los Angeles, touched by the raw emotion in Eli's voice, booked a flight to find him. Meanwhile, local news crews descended on the neighborhood, their cameras intrusive, their questions overwhelming. Eli hid, scared of the attention, unsure if this was a blessing or a curse. His siblings, wide-eyed, asked if they'd be rich now, but Eli couldn't answer. He only knew the weight of expectation was heavier than the scrap he carried. That night, alone on the fire escape, he sang, "Hotel California," again, not for the world, but for himself. The lyrics, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave," felt like his life, trapped by circumstance. Yet, the world's response gave him a flicker of hope. Maybe his voice could be his escape, a way to rewrite his story. As the days passed, Eli's story became a global phenomenon. On X, hashtags like #PoorBoySings and #HotelCaliforniaKid trended, with fans creating fan art, covers, and tributes. A documentary filmmaker began piecing together Eli's life, interviewing neighbors who spoke of his kindness, his quiet resilience. The world learned of his sacrifices, how he'd skipped meals to feed his siblings, how he'd taught himself guitar by ear, mimicking radio tunes. Music labels competed to sign him, but Eli remained elusive, wary of promises that sounded too good to be true. The producer from Los Angeles, a woman named Clara with a reputation for nurturing raw talent, finally tracked him down. She found him in a soup kitchen, sharing his meal with a younger boy. Clara approached gently, offering not just a contract but a chance to tell his story through music. Eli hesitated. He'd heard of dreams being exploited, of poor kids used and discarded. But Clara's sincerity, her own story of rising from nothing, resonated with him. She promised to protect his family, to ensure his mother got medical care. For the first time, Eli allowed himself to dream. Clara arranged for him to record Hotel California, in a proper studio, a world away from the alley's grit. The session was electric. Engineers wept as Eli's voice filled the room, each note carrying the weight of his struggles. The recording, released online, broke streaming records, surpassing even the original by the Eagles. Fans on X called it the most emotional Hotel California ever, a rendition that captured both despair and defiance. Eli's face, once hidden in shadows, was now on billboards, his story inspiring millions. But fame was a double-edged sword. Hateful comments surfaced, accusing him of faking his poverty for clout. Eli read them, his heart sinking, wondering if the world's love was fleeting. The spotlight grew hotter, and Eli felt its burn. Paparazzi camped outside his tenement, their flashes blinding as he tried to shield his siblings. His mother, now in a hospital thanks to Clara's help, urged him to embrace this chance, but Eli struggled with the world's expectations. He wasn't just a singer now, he was a symbol, a poor boy, who'd stunned the world. On X, debates raged. Was Eli a genius or a novelty? Some praised his authenticity, others called him a product of viral hype. Clara shielded him as best she could, teaching him to navigate interviews and avoid exploitative deals. She arranged a live performance on a global streaming platform, a chance for Eli to prove himself beyond the alley video. The event was billed as Eli Sings Hotel California, and anticipation was feverish. Fans from every continent tuned in, their messages flooding X. This kid's voice is my therapy, he's the real deal. Eli, however, was terrified. He'd never performed for more than a handful of street listeners. The night of the performance, he stood backstage, gripping his guitar, its familiar weight grounding him. As he stepped into the spotlight, the crowd's roar was deafening. He closed his eyes, picturing the fire escape, and began to sing. His voice, raw and unbroken, poured out, each lyric a piece of his soul. The world watched, transfixed, as Eli transformed Hotel California into an anthem of survival. Tears streamed down his face as he sang the final line, and the audience erupted. On X, the performance trended for days, with millions calling it a historic moment. Eli's fear melted into a quiet strength. He'd done it. But the world's hunger for him only grew, and he wondered how long he could carry its weight. Fame brought opportunities Eli had never imagined. Clara secured a record deal that included funds for his family's relocation to a safer home. His mother's health improved, and his siblings enrolled in school, their faces lit with hope. Eli, now a household name, was invited to perform at major events, from charity galas to late-night shows. Each performance of Hotel California deepened its legend, with critics noting how Eli's version carried a unique sorrow, a lived-in truth the original couldn't match. Yet, success came with shadows. Eli missed the simplicity of his old life, the nights when his guitar was just for him. Fans mobbed him, expecting the same raw emotion every time, as if his pain was theirs to consume. On X, some criticized his new polished look, accusing him of selling out. Others sent death threats when he declined interview requests, overwhelmed by the constant scrutiny. Clara became his anchor, reminding him to focus on the music. She encouraged him to write original songs, to tell his story beyond covers. Eli began composing, pouring his experiences into lyrics about struggle, love, and the fleeting nature of dreams. His first single, Fire Escape, debuted to critical acclaim, with ex-users calling it the next Hotel California. But the pressure to stay relevant gnawed at him. He saw other viral stars fade, their moment passing as quickly as it came. Eli vowed to endure, to make music that mattered. Late at night, he'd return to his guitar, playing Hotel California, to remind himself why he started. Its chords were his roots, grounding him amid the chaos of fame. As Eli's star rose, his story inspired others. Across the globe, kids in forgotten corners picked up guitars, sang on street corners, and uploaded their dreams to the internet, hoping to be the next Eli. On X, the hashtag Eli effect trended, with stories of young artists citing him as their muse. Schools invited him to speak, and he shared his journey with a quiet honesty that left audiences in tears. He told them about the alley, the hunger, the nights he thought he'd never escape. "Your pain is your power," he'd say, his voice steady but soft. Charities partnered with him to fund music programs for underprivileged youth, and Eli donated much of his earnings to ensure others had the chance he'd been given. His performances of Hotel California remained his signature, each one different, infused with whatever he was feeling, grief, joy, or defiance. Critics began comparing him to legends, noting how his voice bridged generations. Yet, Eli stayed humble, often visiting his old neighborhood to play for those still trapped there. One night, a young girl approached him, strumming a battered guitar, singing Hotel California, with a voice that echoed his own. Eli listened, tears in his eyes, and handed her his guitar, a symbol of passing the torch. On X, the moment went viral, with users calling it the circle of inspiration. But Eli's journey wasn't without setbacks. A tabloid published lies about his past, claiming he'd exaggerated his poverty. The accusations stung, and for a moment, Eli retreated, doubting himself. Clara and his fans rallied, flooding X with support, reminding him the world knew his truth. Years passed, and Eli's music evolved, blending folk, rock, and soul into a sound uniquely his. His albums topped charts, but Hotel California remained his anthem, a reminder of where he'd begun. He performed it at sold-out stadiums, each rendition a pilgrimage back to the fire escape. The world had changed since his alley video. X had grown, new platforms emerged, but Eli's story endured. He became an advocate for the voiceless, using his platform to highlight poverty and mental health struggles. On X, he shared raw posts about his own battles with anxiety, earning respect for his vulnerability. Fans called him the people's artist, a title he wore with pride. His family thrived. His mother, now healthy, ran a community center funded by Eli's earnings, and his siblings pursued their own dreams. Yet, Eli never forgot the weight of his past. He'd visit the alley, now gentrified, and play for the ghosts of his old life. One night, a major award show invited him to perform Hotel California, as a tribute to its lasting impact. The performance was historic. Eli, now a man, sang with a depth that silenced the world. On X, fans shared clips, writing, "This is why music matters." But fame's toll lingered. Eli struggled with the isolation of being a symbol, the expectation to always inspire. He confided in Clara, who reminded him he was human, not a myth. To cope, Eli began mentoring young artists, finding joy in their growth. His legacy wasn't just his music but the hope he ignited in others. Eli's journey came full circle when he returned to his city for a free concert, a gift to those who'd known him before the world did. The event, held in a park near his old alley, drew thousands. As he stepped onto the stage, guitar in hand, the crowd fell silent. He spoke briefly, thanking them, his voice cracking with gratitude. Then, he played Hotel California, its chords ringing out like a hymn. The audience sang along, their voices merging with his, a chorus of shared dreams. On X, the moment trended as the most emotional Hotel California ever, with millions watching live. Eli's eyes glistened as he sang, each lyric a memory of hunger, hope, and triumph. He thought of the fire escape, the vendor's video, the world's embrace. His mother, watching from the front row, smiled, her pride brighter than the stage lights. As the final note faded, the crowd roared, but Eli felt a quiet peace. He'd turned his pain into art, his voice into a beacon. After the concert, he stayed, meeting fans, listening to their stories. A boy, not unlike Eli years ago, handed him a drawing of a guitar with the words, "You showed me I can dream." Eli hugged him, promising to keep singing for those still in the shadows. On X, his story continued to inspire, a testament to the power of one voice to stun the world. Eli knew he'd never leave Hotel California behind. It was his heart's song, a reminder that even a poor boy could change everything.